Hi, welcome back to Finally Revealed. In this episode, I want to talk about the 9 different types of expenses that you have when you are going to sell a house. Some of these you might be aware of and some of them you won't. Some can be negotiated in your contract, but these are expenses that if you don't assign them to someone else, then you as the seller will have to pay these, okay? 9 things. The first one is the repairs that you're going to have to make and any cleaning expenses, hauling away furniture, switching out furniture, putting things in storage, and those are expenses related to getting the property ready to sell. The second expense is the real estate commission. You don't think about paying it as the seller, but it comes out of your proceeds at the sale. So that's something you're going to have to think about as you're negotiating the price or when you're fixing the price in the beginning, because that's a number that's going to come off the top with the other expenses before any money comes to you. The third type of expense is your attorney's fee. Unless you're an attorney or you deal in real estate a lot in that community of that type, you should have someone look over your contract, and you also may have to consult with an attorney if there are any irregularities, any modifications to the standard real estate contract that realtors use, or which there should be. It should be customized for each sale. Or if you're doing for sale by owner, you need somebody to draw up the contract. You should not do that yourself. So that's going to be that expense. The next expense is the title policy to the buyer. This is a typical expense where the seller provides clear title and an insurance policy to protect the buyer in case someone else comes back later and says, hey, you bought that house from Joe, but Kathy owns it. That's what that is. Next type of expense is in repairs. Now, I mentioned repairs a minute ago in getting the property ready for sale, but once you go to contract, there may be additional inspections, either structural or mechanical, pest inspections, those types, and or surveys may be done, and as a result of those inspections, the buyer may come back according to the terms of the contract and say, hey, you need to pay for these repairs, or you'll negotiate whether or not repairs are paid for out of the purchase price or escrowed. In any event, it's a possibility that you'll be paying for additional repairs. The next category is broad, and I call it closing fees. Now, I mentioned title insurance a minute ago. That would be something that comes in with the closing costs and taken out on your HUD-1, which is your closing statement, where they're all itemized. But it can be negotiated, and that's an expense you're going to have regardless. Some of these other expenses as closing fees, again, can be negotiated and paid by the buyer or, divided, something like that. But these are things that you need to be aware of, because if you don't talk about it otherwise, you're going to be paying these expenses. So the closing fees include the transaction fee by the title company, who is going to record the papers, assemble the papers. The company is designated in the contract. Sometimes if the buyer is using a lender, they don't have the money to pay for it up front, they're getting a loan on the property, their lender may ask for a particular title company. You as the seller can get a discount usually on your title insurance, on the commitment and some of the expenses if you use the same company that did the work when you bought the house. So, but anyway, the person who is conducting the closing is going to charge a fee, transaction fee. If there is earnest money put down or any other type of escrow that goes past the sale, for expenses, or there's some money that's held in escrow to make sure that inspections are passed or repairs are done, and if their escrow duties are going to be more than just holding a deposit, they may charge an extra escrow fee, so that will be included as closing fees. There will be taxes and insurance that are prorated, so those will have to be paid into the closer at closing. If you have not paid your taxes current through the date of closing or they haven't been assessed yet, then you're going to have to pay some money in. The buyer will also have to pay some money in to make sure those are all covered as of the time of closing, and insurance as well. And then recording and transfer fees will need to be paid for the release documents. If you have a loan and it's getting paid off, that's going to have to be released. Their new mortgage is going to be recorded, or their deed of trust. They should be paying for that. but those types of documentation fees will have to be filed. Sometimes there are cover sheets, sometimes there are other types of ownership affidavits that will be filed. If there is any type of a trust ownership, there are additional documents that go with that. So all of that paperwork and the filing of that and the handling of that has a fee attached. The next category are loan fees. Now, if you have a loan on your house and a mortgage or a deed of trust and you're making loan payments, even though you've now entered into a contract to sell it, you're going to have to keep making those payments until the date that you sell it. And then the loan should be paid off with the proceeds from the buyer. But you're going to have to pay any of those fees. They may have a prepayment penalty. They, as I mentioned a minute ago, recording or release fee. That keep making those regular payments and honor your obligations on the loan until the transaction where you're actually selling the property is completed. And number 8 is the normal operational expenses for the property. Upkeep, if there's a lawn service, if you have contracts for pest control, your utility bills, your assessments from the neighborhood association or from the county, other things like that, homes association, you have to keep paying those through the date of the closing, so you have to keep up with those. And then any warranties that you are transferring to the buyer in connection with the contract. If you're going to sell it with a home repair warranty, as that's been negotiated in the contract, then you're going to have to pay any of those types of programs or prepaids that are in the contract. So those are the 9 types of expenses involved for the seller when you sell your house. I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, give me a thumbs up. Share it with anybody who's thinking about selling usually their first house. Once you get through it the first time, you kind of have that idea. Also, it's good for buyers to know, because these are some things that you can negotiate to have the seller keep these expenses and make sure they pay them. Anyway, share it with someone who it may help. Subscribe to see the other videos. Leave any comments on any experience that you had below so we can all benefit. And subscribe to see our other videos, and come back and see me next time. Thanks for watching.